So here we're coming across a certain phenomena, I guess you can say, when it comes to verbs. Two major conjugations in Greek, the O conjugation or the omega conjugation and the me conjugation. Contract verbs form a special class of the omega conjugation. It's about the omega conjugation. We're going to talk about the me conjugation maybe next week. Okay. Next week, I think the last lesson, page 12, chapter 25, will be the me verbs. And I know it's kind of like, just when we are barely getting a handle on the omega verbs, all of a sudden there's me verbs. Right, I know. But that's, again, keep in mind, you need second year Greek to master all these things. So with that said, contract verbs are introduced in this lesson along with the unique but related class of verbs called liquid verbs. You're going to see both of them very rapidly. Greek contains many verbs whose stems end in a short vowel, a, e, o. Okay, when the connecting vowels, omicron or epsilon, used in the formation of the present imperfect tenses are added to the stem, the two vowels combine and form either a long vowel or a diphthong. A long vowel or diphthong. It's kind of same as the amalgamation. Remember the amalgamations? We talked about the labials, the dentals and the gutturals coming and meeting the sigma, what happens to them. Okay, we're sort of talking about the same thing here. So a plus an e or a sound takes on a or keeps the a, retains the a. So tima plus ete is timate. A plus o sound, which is a as an omicron or as an omega, or u as an omicron and upsilon, retains the o. So tima plus amen is timomen. And then a plus any combination with the iota takes on the iota subscript, as you see here. I covered that in one of the videos. Make sure you watch them. So tima plus a equals time or tima, but this is aleph with not aleph. I'm not teaching Hebrew here. With the alpha and the iota subscript. So tima. E plus e becomes a, as in filete. A plus o becomes u, as in filumen. And here, e before a long vowel or diphthong drops. Filet plus a becomes sorry, this is the thing kind of messes things up here. E before any long vowel or diphthong drops out. So there should be a break here. Okay, becomes so filet plus a equals filet. A plus long vowel equals o. A plus short vowel becomes u. A plus any combination of I or iota becomes oi. And you have to just kind of learn these things, how the contraction takes place. Well, here's how it is. I don't want to read these paradigms because they will make no sense unless you're sitting down and working with them. They'll just be words. The pronunciation sometimes can be so much the same, but actual letters and how they're contracting, that's where the difference is. So I'm not going to read all these paradigms. Please read them on your time. Same thing here, the tenses of contract verbs. Liquid verbs. I do want to talk about this very quickly. A special type of irregularity in the Greek verb system involves verbs whose stems end in one of the so-called liquid consonants, which is la, ma, na, or ra. Okay, again, keep in mind, I go by pronunciation, not by the designation of each alphabet. So la, ma, na, ra. So what happens here? So in the future of liquid verbs, and E is inserted between the liquid consonant and the future time morpheme sigma. Then the sigma, as usual, between the vowels, two vowels is dropped, and the A is contracted with the vowel of the ending. For example, meno, the future of meno, is formed as follows. Menoso becomes meneso, meneo, and finally meno. Okay, so meno, the future form. So make sure you take the time to look through this, please. Vocabulary is here, again, very important. And then contract verbs of the de lower type and liquid verbs. As in exercises, which ones to do? Let's do number one, number 5, number 8, number 16. Okay, let me go over them again. All right, let's try this again. Number 1, number 5, number 8, number 16 for your homework. Moving along to chapter 20. Again, once again, contract and liquid verbs really is about like the amalgamation, how the mixing of certain alphabets kind of results in a longer vowel or a diphthong, and how you need to remember that. So when you see them in a sentence, don't panic. Stop and think about what could be happening there, and you'll be okay. All right, next chapter, chapter 20, verbal adjectives. Verbal adjectives. We're talking about the participles. Now, if you remember in the opening of this, of first year Greek, I even put some videos out there where I talked about the participles. Okay, if you need to go back and watch them. The way Dr. Black describes participle is good. The Greek participle is a grammatical hybrid. As its name implies, the participle shares as its name implies, the participle shares or takes parts or participates in the nature of both a verb and an adjective. That's where you get participles. Is participating in the nature of both a verb and an adjective. So it's a verb functioning as an adjective. And so also the infinitive, we're going to see that in a minute. Infinitive is a verbal noun. I guess you could have said participle too, but no, that's an infinitive. Verbal noun. So participles, verbal adjectives. Adjective is what? A word that describes or enhances the noun. I'm sorry. Yes. And what is an infinitive? An infinitive is a verbal noun. A noun. Noun is the name of a person, place, animal, thing, idea. Okay, that's an infinitive. We're going to look at some examples in a minute. It'll make more sense. But let's keep reading this paragraph. The main uses of the participle are listed below, together with a description of how the participle is formed. The lesson is undoubtedly formidable, and an attempt to absorb it in its entirety on first reading could lead to severe indigestion. That is true. It is tough. But again, if you remember what I said to you in the beginning of this chapter, which is Some of these chapters towards the end of first year Greek seems like it's like a freight train just keeps coming and you just can't seem to get up. You keep getting knocked down, but that's okay. That's part of how it has to be. It's nothing new there. But in second year Greek, we're able to spend some time on these categories because they definitely require more work, but we just don't have enough time. Even if we had full semester, I remember my first year Greek, it was tough. These categories kind of remained in a fog for me. And then in the second year, I took like 3 years of Greek in my master's. In my second year of Greek, it finally began to make sense. I was like, oh, that's what they are. That's what they're supposed to function. Okay, I get it. The first year Greek, adjectives, infinitives, subjunctives, just kind of stayed a mystery for a while. So let's move along. So what do we see here? The nature of Greek participles. The participle is a declinable verbal adjective. It is used to attach a verbal idea to a noun or pronoun. For example, John 4:10. He would have given you living water. Keep in mind, living is a participle. It's a verb, right? Living should be a verb, but it's really functioning as an adjective. It's describing water. So there you have it. Verb functioning as an adjective. But the participle may also modify a verbal idea rather than a noun. For example, Matthew 2:10, seeing the star, they rejoice, seeing the star. And that also functions as a participle, because here the participle translated seeing is adjectival to the extent that it qualifies they. Who is seeing? They are seeing. Okay, what are they doing? Seeing. They are seeing. So that's a participle. So verbs functioning as adjectives. So, and they have to agree. This is very important. Let me mark this down here. Being adjectival, right? Adjective takes on the person or the gender, number, and case of the noun. Same thing with the participle. Being adjectival, the participle in Greek is fully inflected to permit agreement of gender, number, and case. So when you're translating, you'll see that. You'll see these nouns with the same, with these verbs with the same gender, number, and case, and you'll know, okay, they're functioning in that group. They're agreeing with them. And being verbal, the participle has tense and voice. Okay. The three basic tenses forms of the participle are present, aorist, and perfect. That's it. Make sure you look at these paradigms, very important. Participle with first and third declensions. Let's see, keep moving here. Participle with first and second declension endings. Again, it's a lot, just like Dr. Black said, and it gives you indigestion, but it is what you have to do. Let's look at some of these examples. Use of the Greek participles. They're basically used in three ways, okay? Look at this one here. Anthropos, legon, tauta, plepeton, dulon. The man who is saying, so that legon is functioning as the participle. Who is saying these things sees the servant. Tauta, these things, sees the servant. Okay. Let's go to number 2. Ha legon tauta blepe tu dulon. The one who is saying these things sees the servant. Ha legon, again, just like here, but in a whole different kind of sentence. Not a whole different, it's a different kind of sentence. Is giving an example of a participle. Legon tauta ha anthropos blepe ton dulon. Legon tauta ha anthropos, while saying these things, the man sees blepe sees the servant. Another example of a participle. Now, how do they function? Well, sometimes the adjectives, sometimes they function attributively. That is, they may attribute a quality to a noun, a good man. Sometimes they function substantively. That is, as a substantive or a noun, as in the sentence, the good one or the good man. So you see the difference between here attributively and here substantively. The one who is saying, the man who is saying, the one who said, that's more of a substantival use. And then finally, in addition to being used adjectively and substantively, the participle may also be used adverbially to indicate some circumstance under which the action of the main verb takes place. So that's a different use. So things like while, or when this was happening, or having said this, or after, because, depends on the context. It gives you, it can be used adverbially. By the way, what is an adverb? Adverb is something that describes the verb. Okay, so that's an adverb. So that's what it is. That's some telemarketer or whatever. Not sure what's going on there. So the third use is adverbially, and some examples are given here by Dr. Black. Make sure you read through these examples. Lots here. I'll admit it's a lot. It's part of what you have to do. Lots of examples. The genitive absolute. When the subject of a participle is different than the subject of the main verb of the sentence, the participle in any pronoun, noun or pronoun accompanying it are placed in the genitive case. This is something you will see. When the subject of a participle is different than the subject of the main verb of the sentence, and a difference, they're placed, the participle noun in any noun or pronoun accompanying it are placed in the genitive case. So, example right here: Epontes tauta exalton hoi apostoloi. When they had said, epon, to say, to speak. When they had said these things, the apostle exalton went out. How many to do in this chapter? Let's do 1, 5, 9, 13. 1, 5, 9, 13. We'll go back here again. Under this chapter, chapter 20, 1, 5, 9, excuse me, and 13. Don't despair. It is tough. Verbal participles, verbal adjectives, participles can be difficult, but your mind, your brain has been stretched. You're beginning to play with categories you didn't know of before, and you can make it. You'll make it. Okay, trust me on that. This too shall pass.